Here is the complete American English text-to-speech script, perfectly optimized for 11 labs. I have removed all visual cues, converted measurements to miles and feet for American audiences, and used strategic punctuation, ellipses, commas, and periods to force the AI to pause, breathe, and deliver a dramatic, documentary-style narration.
Just copy and paste this directly into 11 labs.
We just witnessed the economic destructive power of the Strait of Hormuz. But there is a much more terrifying reality. The survival of the entire Asian economy doesn't lie in the oil fields of the Middle East, but is being choked at a narrow stretch of water in Southeast Asia. Imagine a quiet, narrow local street. Now, imagine cramming 1/3 of the entire world's commercial trade into that exact street. Welcome to the Strait of Malacca, where every single year, over 90,000 massive, ultra-heavy ships carrying more than $3 trillion worth of goods must squeeze through a channel that is a mere 1.5 miles wide at its narrowest point. If the Strait of Hormuz makes the world fear an oil price shock, a crisis at Malacca would utterly collapse the global supply chain. It would paralyze the great industrial machines of China, Japan, and South Korea in just a matter of short weeks. But the most terrifying thing is not the narrowness created by nature. The most terrifying thing is that global superpowers are frantically pouring tens of billions of dollars into mega projects, aiming to neutralize this strait forever. So, what are these mega projects? And why does such a tiny strait hold the lifeline of the entire world? Let's find out. Geographically, the Strait of Malacca is a stretch of water about 550 miles long, sandwiched between the Malay Peninsula to the northeast and the massive Indonesian island of Sumatra to the southwest. From the era of ancient spice traders to the modern era of globalization, Malacca has always maintained its status as the shortest, fastest, and most economical route connecting two massive oceans, the Indian and the Pacific. Picture the world map. This strait is like the narrow waist of a giant hourglass. Any commercial flow from Europe, from Africa, or from the resource-rich Persian Gulf, wanting to reach the booming markets of East Asia, is absolutely forced to flow through this narrow bottleneck. Thousands of years of history have proven an undeniable truth. Whoever controls the flow at Malacca holds the key to immense wealth. And the nation that has capitalized on this the most brilliantly in the modern era is none other than Singapore. By positioning itself right at the narrowest exit of the strait in the south, Singapore transformed itself from a poor, swampy island into the busiest, most modern, and wealthiest maritime transit hub on the planet. They are the toll booth of the world, yet they don't even need to collect a toll fee for passing through. Instead, they make their fortune from port services, oil refining, and global finance. However, accompanying these colossal economic benefits are fatal, unpredictable risks. Unlike the vastness of the open oceans, the waters of Malacca are extremely shallow and cramped. At the Phillips Channel area, right near Singapore, the depth of the navigable waterway reaches only about 82 feet. This means that for those gigantic oil tankers, known as VLCCs, passing through here, the bottom of their hulls sits just a meager 6 feet above the muddy ocean floor. They become slow-moving, sluggish giants incredibly vulnerable to any disruption. And no country on Earth fears this vulnerability more than China. Currently, the world's second-largest economy is thirstier for energy than ever before. Roughly 80% of its imported oil, the very fuel that powers tens of thousands of factories and millions of vehicles in China day and night, must absolutely travel through the Strait of Malacca. In 2003, former Chinese President Hu Jintao, in a landmark speech, gave this obsession a name, the Malacca Dilemma. The core of the problem is simple, yet agonizingly critical. Beijing relies almost entirely on this strait for its very survival, yet they have absolutely zero capacity to control it. Let's imagine a dark scenario. In the event of a catastrophic geopolitical conflict in the Asia-Pacific region, strategic rivals, such as the formidable U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet, combined with its allies, would only need to deploy a few warships to blockade both ends of the strait. To the west, India possesses the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, positioned perfectly across the gateway into Malacca, creating a flawless natural blockade. If that scenario unfolds, the Chinese economy would instantly have its lifeblood severed. No oil to run machinery, no shortest route to export goods to Europe. An energy crisis and a total collapse of the supply chain would happen so fast it would be irreversible. And that is not even mentioning another constant, equally dangerous risk that has existed for centuries: piracy. Taking advantage of the complex terrain with thousands of small islands, dense mangrove forests, and intertwining waterways, the Strait of Malacca has always been the perfect backdrop for pirate syndicates. Using speedboats, armed with heavy weapons, they appear and disappear in the dead of night to hijack cargo ships worth millions of dollars. For ship crews, navigating Malacca at night is always a true psychological battle. So, faced with a situation hanging by a thread, how can the global superpowers escape this nightmare named Malacca? It's time we talk about the alternatives. The tens of billions of dollars megaprojects, born with one sole purpose: to break the monopoly of the Strait of Malacca. And the most prominent among them is the Kra Canal project, also known today as the Thai Canal. This idea is not new at all. It has existed for over 300 years, since the time of King Narai of the Euthaya Kingdom in the 17th century. The idea is incredibly bold: to dig a canal straight through the Kra Isthmus, the narrowest part of Thailand, slicing the Malay Peninsula in half, to connect the Gulf of Thailand directly to the Andaman Sea. If the Thai Canal is successfully built, commercial ships would no longer need to detour all the way down to Singapore. They would cut their maritime journey by roughly 750 miles, equivalent to saving 2 to 3 days of travel time and tens of thousands of dollars in fuel costs per trip. Most importantly, this route would lie entirely outside the control of the Strait of Malacca. Unsurprisingly, China is the most enthusiastic supporter of this project. But why is it that even today, the Thai Canal remains nothing more than a dashed line on a map? There are 3 main reasons. First, the colossal economic puzzle. The cost to blast, dig, and build a canal deeper and wider than the Panama Canal, cutting through complex mountainous terrain, is estimated at around $30 billion US. This is an extremely risky number for any investor. Second is the vital matter of Thailand's national security. Physically slicing the country in half raises profound concerns in Bangkok. They fear the canal would create a physical boundary, fueling the existing separatist movements of insurgents in Thailand's 4 southern provinces. And third, the silent but fierce opposition on the geopolitical chessboard. If the Thai Canal materializes, it means Singapore and Malaysia would lose their monopoly, resulting in the evaporation of tens of billions of dollars in annual port service revenues. Because the Kra Canal is still just on paper, the world currently has no choice but to continue betting its life on Malacca. But what would happen if tomorrow, not because of war, but simply a maritime accident? Remember the disaster of the massive Ever Given container ship lying sideways and completely locking down the Suez Canal in 2021? If a similar incident happened at the narrowest point of Malacca, it would be an absolute catastrophe. Tens of thousands of ships would be forced to turn around. The only remaining route would be a massive detour down to the deep south of the Indonesian archipelago, passing through the Sunda or Lombok Straits. The journey would be extended by thousands of nautical miles. Freight transit times would stall. Global logistics costs would skyrocket to unimaginable levels. Energy prices, food prices, and consumer goods would become more expensive than ever seen before. A new tsunami of inflation would sweep across and crush the global economy. Fully aware of this apocalyptic vision, China is not sitting still. When the sea route is threatened, they seek to extend their tentacles across land. Beijing is frantically investing in the Belt and Road Initiative. They built the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, pouring billions of dollars to lease the deep-water port of Gwadar, pumping oil through a pipeline system over the Himalayas straight into Xinjiang. To the east, they are building high-speed rail networks and oil pipelines piercing through the land of Myanmar, extending straight out to the Bay of Bengal. All of those monumental efforts serve one single purpose: to minimize their reliance on the Malacca chokepoint. But until those grand land projects can fully replace the fleets of supertankers at sea, the Strait of Malacca will continue to exist as a flaming sword of Damocles, hanging precariously over the head of the global economy. Any minor tremor here is enough to create a shockwave that shakes the entire world. The Strait of Malacca has clearly shown us that the boundless wealth of nations sometimes doesn't come from effort, but is bestowed by the geographical chokepoints granted by Mother Nature. But humanity does not always obediently accept nature's arrangement. If you want to know how humans once frantically threw away money, defying tens of thousands of lives lost to disease and treacherous terrain, to dynamite continents apart and create artificial waterways that shifted the entire course of human history. Click the video on your screen right now to uncover the economic mystery behind the Suez Canal. I'll see you there.